Good morning. Eli the Restorer coming back to you today. Hope you're having a good day. Sitting outside again. It's a beautiful morning. The heat's passed. Feels like heaven here in the shade with the birds chirping, saying their hellos. Today I wanted to talk about a really important topic, open-mindedness. I found a really interesting quote that really struck me, especially since I'm a bit of a skydiver. I like to jump out of planes and out of other types of planes. So Frank Zappa has a really good quote. He says, "A mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work unless it's open." And one of the things that I tell people frequently when they comment on my openness and my curiosity and my hunger to learn things is what I tell them is that I haven't decided on a lot. You know, look at what the sciences have experienced in the last 50 years. Everything's been flipped upside down. The concept of evolution has pretty much been rebuked, I guess is a good word for that. Quantum mechanics, physics, fractal reality, chaos theory, how we interact with the universe, who we really are, all of that has been flipped upside down in the last 50 years or so. Even some of Einstein's concepts, I think, have been put into question, although I still admire the heck out of his creativity and his open-mindedness. There's a gentleman named Bruce Lipton that I follow, and Bruce does a lot of work on beliefs, unconscious beliefs, how we're trapped into the matrix of our minds. And what he states, and I did a really good video on our website, it's called bringingisraeltoamerica.com, and how we can heal our childhood wounds with shamanic journeying. So if you want to check that out. But up into the age of 7 or 8, a child is in a trance. And when we're in a trance state, we don't question much of anything. We just take it in as Bible, as gospel, etc., etc. And then when the child hits 7 or 8, they become more aware. They call it the age of reason. But unfortunately, all of those thoughts, programs, things that we were told about ourselves, about the world, about God, about you, about me, all of that stuff went deep inside the unconscious, and it's still laying there getting activated. And you'll see this in people's lives when I ask them, you know, if they want to try something new, take a challenge, and the program overrides everything. Even though their conscious mind is open to something new, the unconscious creates fear, creates anxiety, creates some form of resistance to keep us trapped into that program that we're living in. And one of the things that I did to experiment with this, because I love to try things since my mind is open a lot of the time, I'm not going to say all the time, and I'm not saying you can't have beliefs, but write them all in pencil. So when you find something, like what I've done, I was raised Catholic, and I drank the Catholic Kool-Aid as a kid, and I believed in a lot of the things they were saying. And as I got older, I went through a metamorphosis where I had some kind of an awakening, and I challenged a lot of those thoughts and beliefs. And I'm not saying anything negative about Catholicism or any religious system, but we've got to be open to looking at things in other ways. You know, it's kind of like if you get 10 people feeling an elephant in different parts of its body, they're going to have 10 different descriptions of what they're dealing with. And ultimately, the real animal is an elephant. But, you know, you've seen that, probably heard that talked about in that, how they all come up with something different. So what I did to experiment with Lipton's concepts, and his thing is, you've got to find a theta technique to heal theta beliefs, beliefs from our early childhood. And that could be hypnosis, that could be eye movement therapy, EMDR, I learned that years ago. Some form of therapy or a modality, I don't want to call it therapy, that allows you to go into theta brain waves, the more trance-like state, like when we meditate. And shamanic journeying is very theta-like. So I experimented with something up until I was in my 50s even. whenever I would make a mistake, I would either want to run and hide like a kid, or I'd want to go invisible. Now, I understood where this came from because growing up in my family, it wasn't real safe to make mistakes. The parental structure wasn't permissive enough to allow that. So I have fully understood where it came from, but darn it, every time I screwed up, I would want to go invisible or I'd run and hide. So I did a shamanic journey, and that's what the video talks about on our website, Bringing Israel to America. My intention for this journey was to heal the wound of making mistakes. And during the journey, it was pretty awesome, but my father came to me on a beach, and he was 30 years old when he came to me. And we had an amazing interaction and talk in that. And something shifted inside of me. And again, this stuff's hard to explain unless you've experienced it yourself. Well, guess what? Now when I make a mistake, I laugh. Sometimes I laugh a lot. I don't get that urge to want to run and hide or to go invisible or escape the situation because it's changed for me. And there's a new TV program playing this summer called Reverie. It's on NBC, Channel 5. And I was intrigued by what I saw in the early previews with this. And what they're doing with Reverie is people can go in, get knocked out, I guess, go into a trance, and they set up a program that the person can live in. If you get a chance to watch this program, it's really exciting. And then the star of the program, I forget her name, Shahi, I think, she's been given the assignment when people don't want to come out of their program and their body starts to die on the outside of the program, she has to go in and convince them to come back to this reality. So it's really an interesting concept that Hollywood's providing for us. And what Bruce Lipton's talking about is similar to Reverie. When people get locked into their programs, it's really hard to get them out. And if you watch the program, what I'm fascinated with is how the star has to find a way to convince them to leave the dreamlike state and come back to the reality of their lives. So if you want to experience life more fully, be open to new teachings, new ideas, new concepts, keep your mind open. You know, when Frank Zappa came up with that quote and I read it, I thought, what is an open mind really? Kind of what it's like is we got to use a hatchet to open it up, to spread it out, because we are so locked into these programs that we don't even know the matrix is running us. You know, look at the life we've lived. Look at the life you've lived. Look at the life I've lived. You know, when I was younger, I had a lot of beliefs about races, religions, different cultures. What I'm going through now, and it's really a good test for me, is hanging out around the gay community, even though I'm straight. This Sunday, I'm going up to the Pride Parade in Chicago. This will be my 4th time going, and I really enjoy it. What I've seen with myself is I start to challenge some beliefs I have about gay people or transgender people or bisexual people. And when I challenged myself, I realized that the beliefs I have really aren't my beliefs. So guess what? I had to go and experience it for myself, and I've come away with different ideas about that population or other populations that are my own beliefs and emotions dealing with people that are different than me. And so often in the world, and you guys know what I'm talking about, the battles, the wars, the murders, a lot of times it's tied into a mistaken belief about something, and without catching a breath and saying, is this really true? It's kind of like the work of Byron Katie. And I've talked about this before, but I'm really, really excited and lathered up about what this woman is doing. You have a thought. We have how many thoughts in a day? Deepak says 50,000. I've heard as much as 90,000. So let's split the difference and say we have 70,000 thoughts in a day. Okay, we can't help that. Where do thoughts come from? Well, I believe they come from a thought field where they get floated on and kicked out of, and they just show up. You know, like today, I've had a few interesting thoughts already that I haven't thought about for a while. I just look at it and say, oh, that's an interesting thought. The problem that Byron Katie talks about is when you start believing your thoughts and creating feelings about those thoughts, then you want to act on those thoughts. And that's why I'm such a fan of programs like Dateline and 48 Hours, because it's Hollywood showing us how messed up we really are because we believe these thoughts, and then boom, we end up spending the rest of our life in prison. And I really feel bad for those people, because if they would have had the ability to question their beliefs and thoughts, maybe they wouldn't have done what they did and stayed out of prison. So I highly recommend you guys trying a modality. Like I said, I like the shamanic thing because it's something you can do on your own once you learn to competently journey, and you can heal all kinds of issues. I know my brother Tim, he did a journey on something that he shared in our last shamanic seminar. He said he always felt like there was a set of eyes behind his head staring at him. And he said he pretty well figured it was our dad, watching us, because we were kind of mischievous growing up and we were into everything. He did a journey to heal that, and even driving, he said the eyes were there. He said it was really uncomfortable. It was like he was always being watched. Can you imagine being watched all the time, everything you do? So by doing this shamanic healing journey, I don't know what his intention was, probably to heal that. He said it's gone. It evaporated immediately. So instead of spending years in therapy talking about all this stuff, and venting is good up to a point, but to me, and I've been doing this a while, it really doesn't seem to change a lot unless you can get into the unconscious programs, the matrix of our mind, and start to heal those beliefs and free ourselves up into becoming the amazing individuals that we can be, whatever that's going to look like in the world. So your thought for today is your mind open to everything, to explore, to experience, to taste? So for those of you that are awakening or have awoken, this is one thing you guys would probably want to get into, because I know deep down we struggle with being free in our life, that those eyes are always watching us, or that program that we don't even know is in there until you push up against the limits. The first time I went skydiving, that was a really good test for me, because all kinds of crazy, scary beliefs were popping up, and I just let them be there. I didn't force them away. I just noticed them, and I still jumped out of the plane. And something like that can change your life on many levels. So just start looking for a modality, preferably something you can do for yourself that's effective. I can vouch for the shamanic journeying thing. I've done a few of those. When I feel stuck in an area, and once it's healed, it's gone, and it's almost like I can't even go back to it. My mind won't let me go back to that area. All right, so I want to thank you again for spending some time with Eli. My goal is to restore us to wholeness, to restore this reality to wholeness, to create heaven on earth, as many of these spiritual teachers have talked about. But again, if we don't come into contact with who we really are, and we let the programs run us, we're no different than Neo in the Matrix movie. Have a good day. God bless.